Welcome to the Bagel Logic Podcast, the show where Papa Tom spreads wisdom like a smear of cream cheese on an everything bagel. Here's your host, Thom Jennings.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bagel Logic Podcast, and as promised, I have a guest today, and it's a very special one. I'm going to give him a bit of an introduction now. Dan Glover or Danny Glover, I don't know, which do you prefer? Is it Dan or Danny these days?
It doesn't matter.
So we'll go with Dan. And Dan and I went to high school at a place called School Without Walls in Rochester. I've mentioned it on previous podcasts and everything, but unbeknownst to him, I think he was one of the most influential people in my entire life. And I don't say that, that's not hyperbole, because when I was a young man going to school, Dan was really into music, and he was connected too. So he was connected to a local promoter in the area, a guy named Ted Boylan, but he hooked me up with every concert in the world. I just had to walk around and do music surveys, and then I got to see free concerts for years. So it instilled such a love of music that I have up to this day. I mean, my part-time vocation is a music writer. I still figure out ways to get into concerts for free because of that. And Dad, were you the one that hooked me up with the ushering at the Auditorium Theater as well?
Probably, yeah. I was working for Ted Boylan and what was the other promoter?
John Scherer.
I was working. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was working for both.
So here's the crazy thing. So the concert that I ushered was Utopia at Auditorium Theater, and I'm coming up on 200 Todd Rundgren shows. I'm a Todd Rundgren fanatic, and I
Nice.
owe you all that. So
Aw.
I you know what, you go to your grave knowing that, and I mean, I'm a teacher too, and I hear this a lot. You know, sometimes people come to me and they go, "Oh my God, you have this huge influence on me." I'm like, I had no clue. You know,
Yeah, I didn't.
Honestly, dude, I've never forgotten that. I always remember it. I tell the story to my kids, you know, all the stuff about the concerts. I remember you wearing this t-shirt that said "Welcome Home, Lou," when Lou Gramm came to town with Foreigner and all that stuff. And, but it's great to have you, but we could reminisce another day, but so, you know, fast forward, and, I had done a quick thing called Turntable Tuesday, which I do on my Facebook page. And I brought an old Duke Jupiter record that you were part of and everything. We talked about that. And then I'm like, this dude this guy makes wine, which in California. So I don't know. I guess when we go to high school, it's hard to imagine where we're all going to wind up. But I just think your story is so cool. I mean, it's just awesome. So I'm going to shut up for a bit, and I just want you to kind of begin with, and I took some French, but I'm not always great at this. L'Objet, is that the name of the winery?
L'Objet
Wines.
Okay. Yes.
So from Rochester, John Scherer, Ted Boylan, music industry out in California, I would imagine, to winemaker. Take your time, man. Tell me how you want to be in, and you're a prominent winemaker. People really respect you in the industry. So tell me how this all happened.
Oh, geez. Well, it kind of started just, I mean, I moved from Rochester at 22. And just kind of started writing and playing, and you know, and then I was in San Francisco. Then I moved down to LA and went to music school and was doing more writing and playing. And I had a little band and we were playing and almost got a record deal. But then while I was in school, I got a publishing deal for writing songs. And so while I was doing that, I was working at a then I graduated from music school, went to recording studio, worked there. And then I lost the publishing deal, and because my attorney ripped me off, and then I just kind of like lost it. Basically. And so I moved back to San Francisco, and Eventually met my future ex-wife, and she was very into wine, so I got more into wine, um, and more so and more so and more so. And fast forward, we were living in wine country in Healdsburg, California, and I was still doing. I was working as a um, audio engineer, commuting to San Francisco from Healdsburg, which is about an hour and a half drive, or hour and a half commute one way. And it got very old very fast. And I said, I got to find something else. So I decided I really loved amazing wines, but I could never afford them. So I figured, well, you know what? I'm going to learn how to make them. So I got into making wine. I started out at the bottom and just worked my way up, and got assistant winemaker job, and then I got a winemaker job. And then in 2009, I decided to go on my own, and that's where I am now.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, I guess I think, we all have like our first love and the thing that we hope would be maybe the thing that we could do for the rest of our lives. And I'm sure it sounds like, we were both music guys in high school, and
right,
obviously still are, it's still an important part of our lives. But wine, it in some ways, I guess maybe you came there because it's creative. Like, it still is something that I would imagine appeals to your creative juices.
Exactly.
For lack of a better term, that was a pun, not even intended, but it seems like it makes sense. Creative people make good food products and good drink products.
Right. No, I agree. And, it just became a new passion. I needed something to be passionate about and driven for, and that's kind of what happened. I didn't go to school for winemaking. I actually, would read textbooks, instead of reading a novel. When you go to bed, you read, or whenever you're reading a book, I would read textbooks. And, that's where, and then, obviously people I worked with throughout the years taught me a lot also. So it just it was just this whole, but I think if you're reading textbooks for entertainment, that's kind of the passion and drive that you have.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's, I started doing a little bagel business on the side, and very similar thing. Like, I couldn't get a good bagel lot where I lived, so I decided to give it a shot. But I would imagine in your case too, with the wine, it's like I don't know how you started out. You sure had to make some stuff that was garbage before you figured out how to make the good stuff. And I found that in the beginning, when I was starting to make bagels, they were really bad, but that actually drove me more because it drove me insane that I couldn't figure it out.
Right.
And I just wanted to figure it out.
Okay, so before we go any further, I need some of your bagels. So let me know how to order some.
If you ever come back to Rochester, I probably could ship them. We'll make a pact right now on air. We will make a trade. Right. We will trade bagels for wine. We will make a pact that we'll figure out how to get them to each other. But do you ever come back to the area anymore?
I haven't in a while. My parents have both passed away, so it's and my brother lives in Virginia now, so I don't really have any family there anymore. So, but I need to. I still have people I would like to see. It's just I haven't. Most of my travels, as you probably realize, most of my travels for business. So
yeah. Well, it's harder too because it's not cheap. I got a kid out in Colorado, and it's like, there's just it's not that easy to go from coast to coast. So I would imagine that, and again with parents, my parents are passed away. I don't live that far from Rochester, but I really don't go there often because even with friends, like you said, in some ways it can be painful to go back to the area where your parents used to live.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just yeah. And I've been out here for, let's see, now it's 36 years, or coming up on 36 years anyway. And yeah, it's just at this point, it's kind of like I'm a Californian and my whole life's here.
I mean, it's got to be a different mentality. I mean, again, it's been a long time since we hung out or anything like that. But I mean, you were always a very mellow guy. So I think in some ways that lifestyle sort of suited you. You know what I mean? It's.
Yeah.
I feel like with New York, there's a bit of an edge. There's a bit of a little bit of anger. I mean, even in the whole state or whatever that you can't shake. Where I've heard people that live in California, they tend not to take things quite as seriously, or maybe because they get sun more often than we do. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, no, there's a lot of, there's still a lot of, just human nature. I think there's still a lot of that kind of anger, passion about things. Where California's it's a very liberal state, obviously. So it's, but there's a lot of, all the protesting and a lot of that happens here. But, it's, there's a lot of, I don't know, especially being up here in wine country, it's really just kind of like it is fairly mellow. It's not something that, so I've never been one to get too hopped up one way or another about something, but, it just seems like it's a very easy place to live, sans how expensive it is to live here. But other than that, it's beautiful, and there's a lot of things here that to calm you down if you need to be calmed down. I'm half an hour from the coast, and I go there a lot just to kind of. And so that's one of the things that I love about here. But and it's just beautiful. It's really just a beautiful, beautiful place to live, wine country. So I'm very fortunate. I don't make a shitload of money, excuse my French. But I just kind of chalk it up to lifestyle. I eat well, I drink well, and I live in a beautiful spot and have amazing friends. So it's that's, to me, is what makes me happy.
Yeah, and it's like you said, you don't have to make a shitload of money to be happy in life. There's just got to be stuff that makes you sing. And I mean, again, going back to the whole creative process. You were in the music industry, so I think I don't know anything about the wine industry, so I definitely want to talk about that, because obviously the music industry can be, at least from my perspective, not that I've been entrenched in it, but I've interviewed a lot of people that are in it. It's either really, really cutthroat, or it's really, really welcoming, and it doesn't seem like there's any middle ground, and I would imagine that having to immerse yourself in the music industry, maybe use that skill set to kind of immerse yourself into, is there like a group of people that you hang out with that make wine?
Yeah. I have a lot of my friends are winemakers, or, in the industry somehow, some way. I would say at least half of them. And it's, yes, it does help you. You're right about the music industry. It is, you have to be so, in order to make money at it, you have to be so lucky and passionate about it that it has to be your only priority. It's one of those things. And to keep doing it, it's hard. You have to, again, you have to be lucky, and there's a lot of people out there trying to make money off the people that are actually off the talent. And that's the hard part about the music industry or entertainment industry, is that there's a small amount of people with the talent, and then there's all these people that want to make money off that talent. And so that's the hard part.
Yeah, no, it's something I guess people don't really think about too. I even think of like a guy like Jimi Hendrix. Hendrix really was only, he died very young, and I don't know that I'm sure that he was able to afford a semi-decent lifestyle, but the amount of money that people have made off of Jimi Hendrix's recordings is astronomical. And it led to lawsuits, the whole 9 yards. And I think to him, he was a guy that was an innovator and just did some great stuff. And I mean, he probably just wanted to, play guitar, innovate guitar. But then you're right. There's always going to be people around that are going to figure out a way to make a buck on you, even after you die,
Right. Well, yeah. And those are the people that put the pressure on somebody like a Jimi Hendrix to maybe drink more and to, go into go down the drug spiral and, because these people are putting pressure on him and they want a piece of him. And that's hard. That's hard to live with, for us, it's hard to understand. I mean, I've never been famous, obviously, so I don't know this, but it seems I've talked to people that are famous and they're like, yeah, it's like the hardest part about being famous is that everybody wants a piece of you and you're not you anymore. It's almost like you belong to the world. And it's like, well, that's a lot of pressure and that's a lot to put on somebody.
Oh yeah.
And, so it kind of saddens me that that's the state of affairs with it. But I think that's part of it.
Yeah. And there's guys, I have guys that I know here in the Buffalo area music scene that have just stayed out of that, falling into that trap. And then they have a nice following and they make a kind of like, you're saying they don't make a shitload of money, but they can play gigs and that's what they do for a living and they do what they love. So
yeah. And that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's really cool. I admire that. I admire that a lot.
Well, back to the wine. So you start out and you're just, I mean, I don't know anything about wine. I work on the weekends part-time with a guy who makes mead. So, he kind of is in your wheelhouse, I would imagine. And, similar story, just kind of started tinkering around and then became passionate. And he's great at it. I'd love to get you guys together for a conversation. I'm sure you'd enjoy each other's company, but
yeah,
what was it? I mean, where were you? When did you finally get to the point where you were confident enough to say, yeah, I'm going to do this. I can pull this off.
Yeah. Well, it was really just, I worked for a big company to start off with. So obviously I wasn't making winemaking decisions. I was just a worker. And then when I got an assistant winemaker job, I still wasn't making all the decisions, but you learn a lot. And, that person has been a winemaker for years and been making really good wine for years. And so you learn from that person and then so what to do, what not to do. What, if you do this is the bad things are going to happen. If you do this, the good things are going to happen. So, after doing this for a few years, I get a job making wine for, I'm the winemaker for a company and a small winery. And, so at that point I have my confidence. I've, I hadn't made a bad wine. And so it's like, well, I'm going to start, kind of futzing around on my own thing. And, so I do. And, eventually it came to the point where it's like, okay, so I have like all this wine and I don't have time to go sell it because I work for somebody else. And if I don't sell it, I'm not going to be able to keep making my own wine. So what are you going to do? Are you going to, take the easy route and just kind of go, all right, I'm good, and take the safe route? And I just said, nah, I've never done anything that way. I've always kind of just dived in. So, I dove in and said, I'm going to do my own label. So that's kind of, I was lucky that I didn't, I got a lot of education before I went out on my own.
Yeah. I think that, that's so important too. Like, I think there are some people that are just sponges, they're curious and they take in things. Like you said, you were an employee, and I mean, there's great employees that have no interest in pursuing that particular line of work, but
Right.
I mean, it sounds like you were the kind of guy that was just like, well, crap, I'm going to learn how to do this. And even going back to the conversation we were just having about the artists, you're doing all the work. And I'm not saying your employer was exploiting you, because you were making product for them. But I think there does come a point in people's lives where they look at, even when I was in sales and whatnot, I'm going, man, why am I selling for this guy when I could sell the same product for myself?
Mm-hmm.
I'm building up this guy's business, and why don't I invest in myself? But like that fear, like, oh my God, what happened to, health insurance? And I mean, what was the scariest thing about taking that leap from a position where, again, you're working for somebody else to, man, now it's me, now it's sink or swim. And like you said, California, it's not like it's a cheap place to live if it don't work out,
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, luckily, and I did this on another interview. I was saying that, I don't have kids to support. I don't have, I don't really have anybody to support or, go. So it was a lot easier for me to just jump off and go, if this doesn't work, I'll just go get another winemaker job. And, so that was kind of like my thought process is going in. It's like, yeah, you know what? I think I can do this, but if it doesn't work, I'll just, get another job. But it started working, and then I was like, oh, geez, I really like this. I'm not going to go get, even if it doesn't work, I'm going to make it work. So,
yeah, I mean, I would imagine it's got to be tough going from being your own boss to working for somebody else, especially with something like that. I mean, like you said, if you got to get a job, you got to get a job just to pay the bills. But man, it's especially I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know anybody. Well, I guess maybe some people like to work for other people. I mean, I never have liked it.
Right.
I mean, I do it, but I don't like it.
Right. No, I think there are people because they don't. I mean, there's a lot of people that just, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, those people are the backbone of our country, really, in a lot of ways, I think. Because, those are the people that like somebody like me would rely on. And, there's people that work for other people that, most of my winemaker friends are all working for other people. And so, I mean, the nice thing is they have, kind of creative autonomy, but not total because, there's owners and they want to wine a certain way. So they have to kind of make, fudge it, but they're hired by them because of the style of wine they make. So usually there's there's an agreement there. So yeah, I think there's a lot of people that, but yes, then there's us who are like, ugh, this is hard working for somebody else.
Well, I think it doesn't really come down to, I don't know about you, but for me, it comes down to if I don't feel like I have a creative outlet, like I in being a teacher on some level, I have a little bit of creative autonomy because I'm doing lesson plans. In some ways I'm performing. So, that satisfies all those different things. And then
exactly,
I could do my other stuff on the side, my writing my columns or doing a podcast, those are all my other creative outlets where I have 100% autonomy or autonomy. Right. God, it's such a tough word, but really it's like, it just doesn't roll off my mouth. But I don't know. I think sometimes it's more like, nobody likes authority. It's not even that people don't like authority. It's just they don't like to feel like they have an out. Because, I mean, I think in your case, I would imagine that some decisions you have to make are still business decisions. There's things that you'd like to do, but there's some things that you have to do because it's a business.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's very much so. Luckily I get to make the wines I want to make and the styles I want to make. But I also have to remember that people need to buy these wines and I need to make wines that, a lot of people are going to like. And, I can't experiment too much. I kind of have a way, and I have a protocol of doing things that I really love, and it's turned out really well. But it's nothing super radical. But I see some people doing some really radical things, but they have, let's say, family money or something like that. And so if it fails, it's not something that's it's not going to it's not going to get them kicked out of their homes. It's it's things like that. They have more monetary freedom to go and do things like that. So, which I don't have. I have to really be conscious of what's going to sell. And, sometimes like right now I'm making a red blend, and it's Zinfandel, Petit Syrah, and Merlot. And it's not something that a lot of people are doing, but I did I kind of did some taste tests, and I was like, this is really good. And I got feedback from some winemaker friends of mine about it. And I put it on the market, and it turned out to be turned to sell really well. But it's one of those things that lets me make Pinot Noir the way I want to make Pinot Noir, because I make Pinot Noir not like everybody likes it, but I think there's a lot of people that like it the way I make it. But it's a broad way spectrum of Pinot Noirs, and everybody fits into one of them. So yes, there's a lot of businesses. You do things based on business decisions, and the red blend. I was fortunate enough to get the grapes for that blend very inexpensively, so it wasn't like a big financial hit for me if it didn't work.
Now, I would imagine you probably have a portion of your business that is just like I hate to use the word cult because it just has such negative connotations, but I guess loyal. You probably have a core group of loyal customers that, you're saying like you make Pinot Noir your way. I think when people find something that, like I got brands of mustard. I mean, little
Right.
things like that I got a coffee that, I drive an hour for just to buy, and I won't buy any other coffee because it's just a coffee that I love.
Right.
So, I mean, I assume you've got a percentage of your business that sort of falls in that category, right? That maybe will trust your blend because they trust your brand name.
Yes, definitely. Or they trust me as a winemaker. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So that's yes, there is and especially like I would say my wine club, which those folks are people in my wine club I love them. They're part of my family, and I love it. And that and then those folks spread around the name, because I think like almost every business relies on word of mouth. And so I rely on word of mouth a lot. And so and that's it's been kind of cool to have people spread the word. I feel very lucky.
Is the Pinot Noir? I think from what I read on the website and everything, that was the first one, right? Was that the one where you were like, and you mentioned the fact that, you were drinking wine that was really expensive, and you were like, man, I could probably do this at a better cost. I mean, were you able to pull that off? Because I would imagine I know with smaller scale producers, I think it's tough to obviously compete on cost, but it sounds like you have relationships with grape growers and everything like that those are the types of things that A, you're not compromising quality, but B, you've also got to keep the price at a range that it kind of fulfills that vision. I mean, is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah, that's very accurate. I have to now, have I met, it's funny, I was just in France and drinking a lot of Pinot, and I would say mine, it's different because the vineyards are different, but the way I make my Pinot is really similar to the way they make it there. So, they and that's where that really expensive wine came from. So I was like, yeah, you know what? I think I can kind of do this. And I'm, you know, I'm not like the one I'm not going to say, you should buy this wine for $200 for a bottle, like a lot of those wines are. Because A, I don't pay that much for the grapes. B, I don't think, I don't know. Because I still remember that guy that was going, I really want to try this wine, but I can't try because it's this much money. So I still remember that guy. And so not that my wine is inexpensive, that's for sure, but it's not, it's basically the price of my wine is based on the price of how much it costs to make it. So, I have one wine that's $75, and, that's because the grapes are so expensive. And so, so that's kind of, that's, the business decision is to kind of make sure that you keep your product in a place where a larger amount of people can afford it. I think that's, and not try to price people out, but also make sure that, you're not selling it so inexpensively that you're not making any money on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely, I think that's a challenge for anybody in a small business, and, trying to meet that sweet spot. I mean, I talk to people that own businesses that always say the hardest thing for them to do is raise prices, because you can't really lower them. I mean, once you raise the price, I mean, you can't really lower them. I mean, unless it's not temporary, I guess, unless it's gasoline. I mean, you can do whatever you want with those prices, but
well, they seem to.
Generally speaking, I mean, you have to be very price conscious, and I guess I'm just really curious about the whole process, especially I'm not a huge wine drinker, but man, I love my wines, and I mean, can you, like, if you get the grapes, I mean, because you're saying you obviously have to purchase the grapes, and I know the grapes have got to be the most important component of the taste of the wine. Can you? Mm-hmm. Do you like taste the grapes, and by just tasting the grapes, eventually how the wine's going to come out? I mean, does it work like that, or what's the process there in terms of picking out a grape that makes a certain wine?
Yes, actually. It's funny you say that. I have a great example of that. This past 2021, I was getting some Pinot Noir, and I was and there was this one section of this vineyard that I was going to get Pinot from, and I was like, okay, this is the section I want. And he goes, well, we have the same thing up over there. You might want to go try that too. So I go over and I try it. I'm like, yeah, no. I want this one. Well, they ended up sending me the one I didn't want. And so I was like, oh, geez. And I ended up making a really nice wine out of it. It's just that I think it would have been just, a couple Scotias better if I got the one that I wanted. Let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, the one I wanted was a 9, and the one I got was a 7.5. So, and but I blend my Pinot grapes also. So it's turned out to be an amazing wine. It's just, just little things like that. But yeah, you can taste it in the vineyard. It's something that's, you kind of train yourself to do. When you're tasting something, it's like, when you describe the best coffee, the coffee you drive an hour for, it's like, yeah, because it's got this and this and this, and it's, and I'm really kind of looking for flavors and all that. This is what I'm getting, and this is what I like, and this is what I want. And So it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it's weird. When I first saw that you were doing wine, I automatically assumed you had the vineyard as well. I think there's always that. There's always that perception sometimes that if you've watched a lot of Hallmark movies, my wife's a huge Hallmark movie. The guy always owns the vineyard too, and then winds up with the girl at the end. So you just buy the stuff from the vineyard, which means I guess you don't get to have the girl at the end.
No, I guess I don't have the girl. Oh well.
Oh well, it's not a big deal. So
I'll work on something else.
I mean, was it even ever on your radar to maybe? I mean, have you ever grown grapes, or do you just kind of look at that and go, "Yeah, it's not my wheelhouse, dude. I know I can make the wine with it, but I sure as heck don't want to grow them."
Well, I could. I mean, like I have the knowledge to do it, but I mean, an acre of land with grapes on it is so expensive. It's probably more than a house in Rochester.
Yeah, I mean, these days the market's getting a little bit higher, but again, California. I mean, you guys live on a different stratosphere financially. It's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. It still freaks me out sometimes. But also I'm not really into becoming a farmer. I mean, I suppose if somebody gave me $11 million and I'd be like, okay, well, maybe I'll buy some land with some grapes on it and make some wine from those grapes, and it'd be fun. And as long as I didn't have to solely rely on that as my income, because there's a lot of, I mean, farming is a tough job. It's not, as glamorous, as the wine industry might seem, it's still farming. And it's still the most important part of making wine is those grapes. So you're right. So it's something that, the farmers that I do know and I buy from, and, there's been a few tough years going on. And, so I don't have to worry about, the rough farming years, because I can just kind of go, well, I'm good. Or if, unfortunately, if I have a grower where I can't buy grapes from because something happened, like let's say the fires, I can usually pivot and get something from somewhere else. Whereas if it was my vineyard, I would lose all that money. So I've never really been interested in, very interested in buying a vineyard for my own.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a friend out here who has a winery, and they grow the grapes and everything, but it's a business that's been around for a long time. And again, difference in cost and land out here, and even the growing season's much different out here. There was this, I don't know, this is from a long time ago, and I mean, I teach social studies, so I always think of like Cesar Chavez, and really for a long time, I mean, the migrant workers that worked these vineyards, they had some pretty tough conditions and whatnot. I mean, is there anything, I don't know how to phrase this question because I don't want to put you in a corner or anything like that, but I know you're a very socially conscious guy. You always have been. Mm-hmm. And I think we're both like-minded in that respect. I mean, is that one of the pieces where you have to kind of, when you think about doing business with somebody, making sure that at least on some level, the labor practices are fair, or they're easy to deal with, and all that other stuff. I mean, in addition to just, again, the grapes, you know what I mean?
Oh, most definitely. Oh, yeah. I'm definitely socially conscious of what, basically who these people are. And most of the people I buy grapes from, I already, I've known them before. So I know who they are, and I already know their reputation. There are, one of the grapes, so my Sauvignon Blanc vineyard, the people that manage that vineyard actually go through this whole government process. So they bring people in, and they have to have a certain amount of housing. They get a certain amount they have to get a certain amount for food, and they have to have transportation given to them. And so, what has happened is that more and more, let's say, vineyard managers and people that own like large amounts of vineyards and who hire these folks, don't hire as many, and so there's now a lot of people that we're having a shortage of workers, and a lot of and also it's just a lot of folks just don't want to come up and do that anymore. Because there's actually, which is a really good thing. There's a lot more growth in, because most of these folks are from Mexico, so there's a lot more growth down there now, and so there's less people coming up, and most of the people that are coming through now are from countries below Mexico, south of Mexico. So, but yeah, there's definitely, when I think about, and even the county itself is really conscious of making sure that there's fair practices, and that these employees, even if they're migrant workers, are being treated fairly. And thanks to people like Cesar Chavez and a lot of other advocates, it's become a lot different.
Yeah, we're struggling with that in New York State. There's the overtime threshold for migrant workers, all those things, and it's tough because it just feels like, I don't know, it feels on some level there's not a lot of real strong advocates for migrant workers. And again, you said like a lot of them come from Mexico, and the world's not real kind to Mexicans. At least part of this part of our country is. It's one of those things that we have to still grapple with and whatnot. But going back to the coffee, it's like, fair trade coffee. I think that as long as people that are purchasing it to make their coffee or to make their wine and all that other stuff, if on your end, you're making sure that the people are above board and doing what they need to do, then again, that's part of the change. That's what makes the growers do what they need to do, because if you're not buying from them,
right,
they're not selling. They gotta. And
exactly.
I'm sure you'd pay. It's like you said, you're going to pay a little bit more for a really good bottle of wine. If you got to pay a little bit more to make sure that at least the guys that are working the vineyards have housing. I'm
right, and
not a big deal.
And it's farmed sustainably and things like that. And there's a lot of, I would say pretty much all of the vineyards that I buy from do organic practices, but they're not certified organic. And the only reason they're not certified organic is because that whole certification process is a lot of money. And then there's a lot of people coming in and out, and it's a real pain in the ass to get that certification. And to some people, they want that on their sign in front of their door, and some people are like, well, we'll just do what we know is good naturally anyway, and not worry about some certification.
Yeah, you're not the only one that's told me that. It just seems weird to me. Like, I think that organic on some level has become, I don't know if it's a revenue raiser or more of a marketing ploy, or, and I'm not one of those people that's like has this fear of big government per se. I think that regulations have their place, but yeah, it seems like there's like the whole organic thing, they've made it out of reach for the smaller operations, just because they feel like, because the bigger operations see a commercial value in it, and it's not because they're doing it to, oh gee, we want organic food because we want to make the world a better place. It's more like, we want that organic label because that's the one that people want to see,
or that's the one people pay more money for.
Yeah, they'll pay more money for it because it's, even the produce section. So it's Yeah, that's
exactly.
No, it was funny. Like people don't talk about that kind of stuff, and again, it's just I don't know. I hear it again because you hear it on the street, but it's not something that you hear reported like in the media or anything like that. And I don't know. It's
right.
Yeah, but I agree with you. It's odd to me. Like
Yeah,
you literally can do everything that you need to do, and even have a higher standard than organic, but you can't get that label without going through a whole bunch of hoops that are expensive.
and paying. And yes, exactly. I mean, that's why. I mean, I go to the farmers market, and luckily our farmers market is year round. um, so that's for me. I think that's very lucky. I'm very lucky that way because it's not like that in most places. But also my local, the grocery store I shop in is local. There's only 2 stores, one, near where I live and one on the other side of the county. And and so I can talk to the produce people. I can talk to them and say, well, where do you get this from? And where do you get this from? And then, so if I, want to look and see, because they have some stuff, they have an organic section and then they have a regular section. But even the regular section, you talk to them, the people that are putting out the produce, they're like, oh yeah, no, this farmer does this, and this, and we get it from this farm. And, so they're just not certified. So we can't put it in that section.
Yeah. No, I hear that because it's I live in Oakville, which is near Batavia. If you remember the area,
yes,
so there's a lot of farmers out here, and they all talk about that. They go, well, we're doing what we need to do, but I don't know. I mean, I can't afford to get that, to pay for that certification. It's just, I don't know, it's just bizarre to me, I guess.
It is bizarre.
Well, it's not all that bizarre because again, where there's money and there's value in a label,
you're right.
Going back full circle, there's a difference between the talent and the people that make the money off the talent. And it's a difference between organic as a process and people that make money off the name organic, and it's kind of weird, but so I guess, one subject we haven't brought up, I mean, there's not a lot of black people that make wine. And I think that, the one podcast I was looking at, they said maybe, 1% of winemakers are black and
or less than 1.
Less than 1%. So, I mean, that's gotta be, I don't know. I mean, was it ever like a consideration in terms of, I guess, you and hopefully you remember it the same way that I do. I think that the high school we went to was so we didn't
think about things like that
ever. Like it was like, to me, it was just, it just wasn't a thing, and,
we didn't have cliques. We didn't have,
no,
I mean, we all just kind of knew each other and, that was the beauty of that high school.
Yeah, it really was, and I think that the challenge has been for me, and I don't know if it's been for you, but the challenge for me is that I just can't wrap my brain around some of this stuff that goes on. Even this, like I said, I live near Buffalo, and you get some lunatic that's like reading white supremacist stuff in 2022. I'm like, man, we were like in 1970, we knew that stuff was crazy. I'm like, what are we still reading this for? Did this guy ever go to a history class?
Well, yeah.
But in terms of, I mean, it's as far as like for you, for a business person, I guess on some level it's got to be a source of pride. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know how. I guess I don't know how to frame the question, but it's got to be important to you on some level, but
I don't. It is.
But from what I remember of you, I don't know that it's like something that is like the huge thing. Like, oh, look at me, I'm this black guy making wine. It's more like, well, I'm black and I'm making wine, and black people can make wine. Like, it's not a big deal,
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I kind of have a little conflict with some of the folks that are some of the African Americans that are in the business, and they're, a lot of them are promoting their blackness, and we do a lot of, we've done, we do symposiums and stuff, and we celebrate the fact that there's that we are black, and that we are very proud of the fact that we're black and that we're making wine, and we're kind of making inroads into this industry, but it's not something that I rely on as a, let's say, marketing tool, or it's more about, I don't know. I guess it's just more about, again, I just feel very lucky that I'm able to do what I get to do. And maybe I'm a little luckier because of my skin color, but maybe that's it. I mean, obviously I've worked hard at it, and there's been obstacles because of my skin color, but not a lot. So, and if there were, I definitely overcame them. But it's not something that I really focus on or think is super important for me to promote as that, So, but, I do embrace it. I'm very happy that I am an African American winemaker. And, so, it's a lot of, I mean, that's kind of it is a little weird to talk about sometimes, just because it's not something I focus on, or it's not something I think. I'm trying to make it so my skin color doesn't matter at all. That you just,
Well, yeah, and again, and that's the thing. Like, I feel like but that's kind of how we grew up, And I know this isn't a fair comparison per se, but I'm an Irish dude making bagels. I mean, right. It's
yeah, right.
It's a traditionally Jewish food. I mean, we I grew up in Brighton, and a bunch of Jewish guys making bagels. There's no Catholic Irish guys making bagels. Who does that? But I think that's the. I don't know. I think that's the hopeful part of me. Like, I look at that and I go, it's good that we at least have a community of people that are Black that make wine. Like, that's good, because that just means that they're not pushed out of the industry. And you should, of course, celebrate that, because there's some young Black guy that may say, "Oh no, Black guys don't make wine." Well, no, wait, there's Dan Glover, but it's not like you said. I don't get the whole. I agree. I don't know. I can't really relate to what, because I'm not Black, but I'm a human being. But I just, again, we grew up in such a different atmosphere. I scratch my head at it sometimes,
Yeah.
I have my granddaughter is so my son's wife is African American, and my granddaughter is as well. And I remember my son came to me and he said he was dating her, and he said, I'm dating this girl. I go, well, he goes, well, it's something I got to tell you about her. I'm like, what? He's like, oh, she's Black. I'm like, well, why? Where did I ever give you the impression that I would care about that? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, but he grew up in a very rural community, so that becomes a thing. Right. So I guess the only thing I could say is that it may not matter as much to me, because you know me, and you may have a different feeling than other people do, but it matters to some people. Like, it's weird, like both good and bad. Like, there's people that it would probably say, oh my God, the Black people should never make wine. But there's also people that fall in that other category. Like, who cares? This is a dude, man. Like, he's making wine. Like,
right. Actually, I think the more prevalent thing would be, they wouldn't be able to make wine as good as white people could.
Yeah, which is just like Irish guys can't make bagels as good as Jewish people, because, because it's in their, I don't know what it is in their DNA, but it's not in their DNA,
Right. Yeah. I mean, like that bagel shop on Monroe Avenue.
Oh yeah, Bagel Land.
Yeah. So my friend Tony Mazzelli, Irish or Italian dude, he was the head bagel chef there for years when I was in high school.
See, now you just ruined my stereotype of bagel land. and you've inspired me.
Right.
I thought it was going to have.
Those are like really good bagels.
Oh, that's the ones I modeled mine off of. Like it's like they're the perfect bagels. That was the one that I was pissed that I couldn't get, and started trying to make them at home. I mean, that bottle of Pinot Noir that you drank, the Bagel Land is the bagel that I ate. It's literally the exact same thing. I'm like, God damn it, I need to make this bagel because I can't afford to keep driving out to Rochester and buying them all the time.
Yeah, right.
So. And now I find out it was an Italian. Oh, no.
Well, I'm sure it was a Jewish recipe.
Sure it was. Oh, yeah, mine is. I mean, my base recipe came out of like some like 1920s cookbook by some Hasidic Jew, because I figured, hey, man, that's got to be the starting point. And I'm sure on some level your Pinot Noir had to come. I mean, Pinot Noir that's French, right?
Yeah, so it came from that one came from Burgundy, France, and
there you go. See, you and I, we are just co-opters. We're like the Beatles stealing from Elvis. You know what I mean? Right. So we are the Beatles of our craft.
I'll take that. I like it.
There you go. You got a new marketing ploy.
Me and Thom.
I mean, we're the Beatles, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elvis did it, but Elvis stole it from
Elvis stole it. Yeah, exactly.
Cares, man. It's all been stolen.
Right.
But
exactly.
Wow, well, that's great. Well, listen, man, I've really enjoyed our time together. We're up on an hour, and oh my God, dude, I can't from the bottom of my heart, I can't thank you enough, dude, because I tell you, this music thing has been, aside from my grandkid and my wife and my family, I mean, it's just been such an important component of my life, and such a little thing as those darn music surveys. I mean, that's 40 years ago, but I've never forgotten about it. And I've been a live music, I don't want to say aficionado because that just sounds real. I mean, I've just been a live music lover. It's funny, even when I write my music reviews, people give me shit because I don't ever write a bad review. And I said, well, God, I love live music. I'm not a New York Times critic, I mean,
right.
So I would imagine maybe on some level you feel that with wine too. Like, of course you got to criticize it, but you don't do it just to be a dick. You probably just would rather appreciate a great wine than have to criticize a great wine, just like a concert. So,
right.
But
I mean, you look at the good sides of it and not always the bad sides of it. Right.
Yeah.
So,
yep. So you got another thing to put on your resume. You inspired me. So I do appreciate that. You really did.
Oh, well, thank you, Thom. That's really nice. I appreciate that. I didn't know that. And that humbles me. Thank you.
Well, it was one of the impetuses for this particular podcast. So definitely when I came to picking you as a guest. But yeah, let's do this again. And again, if you ever need, maybe you want to do some kind of quick promo thing for the winery and everything, I'd love to just chat wine. I mean, I think sometimes when being interviewed by somebody who doesn't know a lot about wine actually helps, because then the questions are asked from the perspective of the consumer and it doesn't degenerate into jargon.
Yes.
But we'll figure out. I've got your phone number now, and maybe we'll shoot some text messages back and forth to coordinate the great exchange. In fact, that's what we'll do.
Yes.
We'll make the great exchange and we'll reconvene and we'll do the podcast at that point.
Yes. That sounds amazing. I would love to do that.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap up the podcast, but if you want to hang on for just a couple minutes and then we'll chat afterwards and catch up. And then I'll let you go and I'll grab some dinner. But again, everybody out there, thanks for listening to the Bagel Logic podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. It was a lot of fun. I think we had some great, authentic conversation, and people always learn something, and I always do. So thanks for joining me. I will see you next time on the Bagel Logic podcast.